You are 3 days from land, in a wooden canoe in the middle of the Pacific, and your entire map fits in your lap. It's a lattice of sticks tied together with shells knotted on for islands. No coastline, no compass, no north arrow. You can't even read it while you sail. You memorized it on the beach, and now you steer by the rhythm of the swells hitting the hull. Swells that bend around islands you cannot yet see. If you're wrong about the pattern, you die in open water. The stick charts of the Marshall Islanders worked. They've been working for centuries, and they prove something deeply strange about what a map even is. So how did humans actually invent maps? Here's the answer you'd probably give. Someone got tired of being lost and drew the land as it looks from above. That's wrong on both counts. Maps were not invented for navigation, and they are not pictures of the world. Follow the evidence across 5,000 years and a pattern emerges, the same one hiding in that stick chart. A map is never a photograph of the Earth. It's a claim about what matters. Every map ever drawn is an argument. The oldest argument we've found sits in the British Museum, a clay tablet from Babylon, roughly 2,600 years old, called the Babylonian World Map. And it's a terrible map. Babylon sits at the center, circled by a flat disk of land, surrounded by a ring of ocean labeled the Bitter River, with a few wedges beyond marked as distant regions. No scale, no accuracy. But that's not the whole story, because accuracy wasn't the point. The tablet's text describes the creatures and legends at the world's edges. This map wasn't drawn to get you anywhere. It was drawn to put Babylon at the center of everything, and to fold the unknown world into a story the city controlled. Here's what most people don't realize. The very first map of the world was already propaganda. Older candidates exist. A wall painting at Adelhike in modern Turkey might show a town and a volcano 8,000 years ago, though scholars still argue about it. But the Babylonian tablet is the first unambiguous world map, and the pattern is already set. The map is a claim. Now watch the claim get teeth. Around 240 years before the Common Era, a Greek librarian in Alexandria named Eratosthenes heard that in the southern city of Syene, the sun shone straight down a well at noon on the summer solstice. Same day, same hour in Alexandria, a stick cast a shadow of about 7 degrees, roughly 1/50th of a full circle. So he paid a man to pace the distance between the two cities, multiplied by 50, and computed the entire circumference of the Earth. His figure, depending on how you convert his units, lands within a few percent of the true value calculated with a well, a stick, and a walking surveyor, more than 17 centuries before anyone saw Earth from space. Think about that. And here's the part that changes everything. The instant you can treat the Earth as geometry. You can put a grid on it. Eratosthenes sketched lines we'd now call latitude and longitude, and 400 years later the scholar Ptolemy turned that idea into a book of coordinates for thousands of places, the ancestor of every atlas you've ever opened. The map was still a claim, but now it was a claim written in mathematics. But there's a problem with that story, because the most powerful empire of the ancient world mapped in a completely different way, and it reveals what maps are really for. The Peutinger table is a copy of a Roman road map, a strip of parchment nearly 7 meters long and barely 30 centimeters tall. On it, the entire Roman world Spain to India is squashed into a long horizontal band. Geography grotesquely distorted, seas reduced to puddles, useless for understanding the planet, perfect for what Rome actually needed. A courier asking one question: which road, which stops, how many days? The Romans could count the Earth's size, and mostly didn't bother, because their map wasn't about the world. It was about the route. The claim on the parchment was simple: all roads are ours. And then a Flemish cartographer bent the whole planet to serve a single need. In 1569, Gerardus Mercator published a world map with a brilliant mathematical trick. Any straight line drawn on it is a constant compass bearing, so a sailor could rule a line and steer it across an ocean. It worked so well that ships still rely on its logic today. The cost? The map stretches everything near the poles. Greenland balloons to the size of Africa, when Africa is really about 14 times larger. Europe sits fat and central. Whole generations of schoolchildren absorbed that distortion as fact, and in the 1970s, the historian Arno Peters launched a famous campaign against it, arguing that a navigation tool had quietly become a picture of the world's hierarchy, which raises a bigger question. If the most used map in history has a lie baked into its geometry, what else have maps been lying about? The answer came from a king's annoyance. In 18th century France, 4 generations of the Cassini family ran the first national survey based on triangulation, measuring the whole country as a web of triangles, peak to peak, church tower to church tower. When the Cassinis showed King Louis XV how their precise new map had shrunk France's coastline, he reportedly joked that they'd cost him more territory than any of his wars. That's when everything shifted. The state had discovered that a map could define a nation more precisely than an army could. And that logic has never stopped. Right now, more than 30 navigation satellites circle the Earth at about 20,000 kilometers up, and the blue dot on your phone is the direct descendant of the Cassini triangles. And this is where it gets stranger, because once maps became truth, lying on a map became power. Colonial officials drew straight lines through other people's homelands, and those lines still kill people today. Mapmakers themselves started hiding traps in their own work, paper towns. Fake streets and phantom settlements inserted as copyright bait. One of them, a hamlet called Agloe in New York, invented in the 1930s, sat on maps for decades until someone opened a real shop there, and the fake town briefly became true. Let that sit for a second. The map didn't describe the world. The map created it. The claim had come full circle. So how did humans invent maps? Not by learning to draw the land. Humans invented maps the moment they needed to store a place outside a single human skull, first as memory, in shells and sticks and clay. Then as story, with Babylon at the center. Then as mathematics, with a shadow and a well. Then as logistics, on a Roman strip of parchment. Then as geometry bent for sailors. And finally as an instrument of the state and the satellite. Every stage carries the same signature. The map is never the world. It is always an argument about the world, what matters, who owns it, and where the edges of us are drawn. Which brings us back to your canoe. 3 days out, the swells bending against the hull. The stick chart in your lap was never meant to picture the ocean, only to argue that you could cross it. Tonight you'll probably glance at a glowing screen and watch a blue dot glide down a street you've never memorized, trusting a map that 5,000 years of arguments built. The shells became satellites. The claim never changed. Every map is someone telling you where you are, and the moment you believe it completely, they've told you who you are.